In the highlights, change of baton at EFCC. Farida Waziri is out. Ibrahim Lamode is in. Our reactions trail the unceremonious removal of Farida Waziri as EFCC chairman. She is still waiting to be told she has been replaced. Vice President Sambo presides over council meeting as President Jonathan departs for France. On the foreign scene, the International Criminal Court bows to Libya's stance on Saif al-Islam Gaddafi's standing trial at home. Hello, thanks for joining us on News at 10. I'm ONYI Sunday. President Goodluck Jonathan today appointed Mr. Ibrahim Lamode as the acting chairman and chief executive of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, ending months of speculations about the frosty relationship of former chairman Farida Waziri with the executive arm of government. The appointment, which takes immediate effect, brings to an end the 3-year reign of Mrs. Waziri as EFCC chairperson. Well, correspondent Kende Amodu files this report.
Farida Waziri is not new to hostility, as right from the day she was appointed on the 18th of May 2008 by the late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua and confirmed by the Senate on the 27th of May, she would face an uphill task convincing Nigerians that she was not brought in to undermine the successes of her predecessor, Nuhu Ribadu. The reason? The rather messy way in which Malam Ribadu was edged out of the commission and his well-publicized face down with the Nigeria police in the months that followed. But during her tenure, Mrs. Waziri was able to string together an impressive record of successes, including convictions in high-profile cases, some of which commenced before she came in, and others which were initiated after she resumed. Conviction of former vice chairman of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Olabode George, comes to mind as one of such cases, as well as conviction of the former chief executive officer of Oceanic Bank, Cecilia Ibru. Of course, the controversial plea bargain cases such as that done with former Edo State Governor Lucky Binedian and the motion of perpetual injunction secured by former Rivers State Governor Peter Odili were examples of cases in which the Commission was bested by some of its targets. The former EFCC chairman, however, believed that there would have been much more success in tackling corruption if our proposals for special courts for anti-corruption and accelerated hearing on corruption cases were granted. One of such proposals may have been addressed by the recent directive by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Dahiru Mustafa, to judges handling anti-corruption cases to wrap them up in 6 months. So given the relative success, many are wont to ask, what did Mrs. Waziri do to merit such a disgraceful exit, with over 17 months left to go before her tenure lapses? Mrs. Waziri's travails may not be unconnected with her recent coming into conflict with Attorney General of the Federation, Bello Adoke, who had criticized the Commission for its lack of investigative skills and tact in the corruption fight. The Attorney General had followed this up with a gazette which sought to place the control of anti-graft agencies under his control and is seeking the merger of the EFCC with the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, ICPC, to reduce incidents of overlapping functions. There are also reports of recent moves in the National Assembly to pass a law that will make the EFCC chairman a former retired Chief Justice of Nigeria or President of the Court of Appeal, while the Chief Operations Officer would be an Assistant Inspector General of Police like Mrs. Waziri was. But the immediate questions, of course, are of what benefit will this sudden sack be to the anti-corruption campaign? And why sack a person that had attained some success without so much as an explanation? Was it well thought out? Or will the presidency have to spend the next 6 months explaining its actions, as has become customary for it to do? From the Federal Capital, Kende Amodu, STV News.
All reactions are beginning to trail the removal of the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Mrs. Farida Waziri, while some of our respondents feel the fight against corruption may receive a kind of rejuvenation with the appointment of Mr. Ibrahim Lamode as the new chairman. Others feel it's just another appointment as the war against corruption in the country goes beyond the appointment or removal of the agency's helmsman.
We saw more of noise making than more of action. Most of the so-called corrupt politicians and government officials were tried and even convicted in the media. She did more of media work than of actual court work. And of course, for Lamorde, I know him to be somebody who is thorough. I find legal and police mind, and I know that indeed you want to take the operations of EFCC to high heavens.
The idea that they were fighting corruption either with Ribadu, with Mrs. Wasiri or whatever, it's a comic. I liked it. They have come out clearly, the end of illusion, that they are not fighting corruption. It's not possible. They have never been fighting corruption. Lamode, or what do you call him, his appointment will make no difference against the background I printed to you. The entire Nigerian system currently is based on organized corruption. Can't you see it?
The agenda for Lamode should be, one, the prosecution of corrupt politicians, not minding whichever party they are in. Then we hope that we can get some of the resources of Nigeria that have been stolen. We hope that Lamode would lead the move to repatriate these stolen funds back to Nigeria.
Following the removal of Farida Waziri as EFCC chairperson, our news crew was at the Commission's headquarters to monitor developments since the appointment of Ibrahim Lamode as the new acting chairman. Correspondent Lawrence Umuete reports that Mrs. Waziri says she has not been informed of her removal. But beyond this, he looks at the implication of Mrs. Waziri's removal on the country's campaign against corruption.
For Ibrahim Lamode, this is his second coming as the head of the anti-corruption body in less than 4 years. He was first deployed as acting head of the EFCC in January 2008, when the then EFCC boss, Nuhu Ribadu, was redeployed in a rather controversial circumstance. Mr. Lamode, a serving police officer, was to hold sway till the eventual appointment of Mrs. Farida Waziri. After the emergence of Mrs. Waziri as the EFCC boss, Lamode was quietly eased out of the scene in the EFCC, only to resurface as head of operations in December 2010, where he remained largely in the background until now. At the National Assembly, news of Lamode's emergence once again was received with caution.
There's cogent reasons for doing so. Since he has not said that, I can only say I'm sure it is for the good of the fight against corruption.
I do not think anybody has anything untoward against that woman. She has tried her best, and I do not think it's a tenor issue. I think for us to show seriousness about fighting corruption, we should allow people to serve with confidence. For the new head of the EFCC, his second coming may also signal another round of controversy.
Whatever has been said about, Lamode, for me, issues that the EFCC itself, should be able to investigate. And as far as we are concerned, we also have an oversight, arm through the House Committee on Anti-Corruption.
I'm not concerned with removing anybody. All we're after is let this country move.
There are also those who believe the EFCC should be a strong agency outlasting any chief executive. There are also those who believe the EFCC should be a strong agency outlasting any chief executive.
Don't build institutions around individuals. You build institutions and let the institutions be on its own. So when the person leaves, the institution keeps going. Even without an head, the institution keeps going, it keeps revolving. And unfortunately in this country, when somebody is sacked, it becomes a news just because the person is always bigger than such institutions.
For her sack, there have been questions from the generality of our people on whether the fight against corruption is on course or not. Nobody can answer that question. But indeed, it means that there were issues surrounding the fight against corruption.
For sure, more reactions are expected to trail this latest development as more drama unfolds in the anti-corruption body. Lawrence Moite, STV News, Abuja.
Away from the EFCC, the Federal Executive Council has directed that a mechanism be set in place to ensure the routine seismic inspection of all major bridges in the country. Information Minister Labaran Maku, who briefed newsmen at State House Abuja after this week's meeting of the Council, said a fallout of this decision was the Cabinet's approval for replacement of 8 expansion joints on the 3rd mainland bridge in Lagos at a sum of 1.05 billion naira. State House correspondent Kende Amodu reports.
The Council's decision concerning routine inspection of bridges is a fallout of a memo from the Ministry of Works seeking approval for repairs on the 3rd mainland bridge. Minister of Works Mike Onolememe stressed the need for routine maintenance of bridges across the country.
And over